Good morning. Welcome to Bay Area UU Church. I'm Reverend Katie McQuage-Loukas, and my pronouns are she and hers. This is the Sunday when we honor our most recent, our newest members. And so today our welcome abounds and overflows. Welcome to all of you seekers and pilgrims who have come to this place because the world was lacking something you needed. I hope that you will always find what you seek here. Welcome to those of you who have always been here, raised in this faith or raised in this very church. You too are seekers and pilgrims because you're here. You're still showing up, still asking questions, still bringing your wonderings and curiosity even to this familiar place. Welcome to those who have come seeking community, knowing that somewhere was a place to belong. Welcome to those of you seeking something different from your children than you yourself received. Welcome to those of you who aren't sure why you came, responding to some unnamed, unknown longing in your heart. You don't have to be sure. That's one of the things we're pretty committed to here. You don't have to be sure. Welcome. Welcome to all of us. We have gathered to build a home for the Spirit, a place where all can know they are part of something greater than they are as individuals. We have inherited a legacy of those who sought the same things in their time. We have stepped into a place where a table is already laid to receive us. We are called to be stewards of that legacy. How do we widen our welcome, especially in these times? How do we grow as people so that our places can hold more and more of the other seekers and dreamers who are looking for refuge? There is no one answer. Each of us brings our gifts to this community, and each of our gifts is one answer among many, one way to draw the circle ever wider. Come in, be welcome. Come in and let us worship together.
Good morning. I'm Jane Ebone, your worship associate for today, and Barbara Brandon, our membership chair, is going to light the chalice. Uh-oh. We do. Somebody forgot to do it. I told you chaos.
You did. We did decide the theme for the day was chaos. This is a community effort. It really does take all of our gifts.
We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also, to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together. And now please stand as you're willing and able to sing our opening song, number 145, As Tranquil Streams.
Shall we
Covenant is not a definition of a relationship. It is a framework for our relating. This calls for a level of trust, courage, and sacrifice that needs to be nurtured, renewed, and affirmed on a regular basis. Abiding in covenant is an art form, a mutual creation. Please join me in saying our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship. Thus do we covenant with one another.
Our responsive reading this morning is number 436 in the Gray Hymnal. Number 436 from Reverend David C. Pohl. Please join in with me on the italicized text. We come to this time and this place to rediscover the wondrous gift of free religious community, to renew our faith in the holiness, goodness, and beauty of life, to reaffirm the way of the open mind and full heart, to rekindle the flame of memory and hope, and to reclaim the vision of an earth made fair, with all her people one. Now it is time for us to welcome our new members. So first I'm going to invite up Barbara Brandon, and then I'm going to invite up all of our new people. I don't have the list of names, Barbara has it, so she'll invite you up.
It's been a while since we've had a new member ceremony, so some of you have told me you don't feel so new, but Andrea Bryant, would you come forward, please? We have a little gift for you. Yeah, of course. Cliff's here. Sarah Williams, I haven't seen her this morning, but Elaine Wright, Joss Bispano,
I think she's with the RE.
oh, she's in RE. We need somebody to go get her. Creighton Watkins,
Some people don't like the pressure of being in front of all the right. And then there's Andrea. Andrea's very brave.
well, James will join her, James Moncourt. Brad and Kay James.
One per couple.
And April Day. Cindy and Morris Forbes. Brian and Sam Halligan. Mary Lou Darst, our newest member, except for I misspoke. Travis Eck and his family, his wife Shelley, Arwen, Jonas, and Remy.
Getting a little crowded up here, which is a great problem to have. Today, we welcome our new members who have chosen to formally commit to this community. New members, are you ready to affirm the commitment that you've already made in front of everyone here today? If so, say we are. We are. New members, we are glad that in all your seeking, that in your growth and maturation, you have chosen us, Bay Area Unitarian Universalist Church. Will you offer us your gifts and talents? Will you offer your time and service and your love of justice? If so, say, we will. We will. Congregation, we have words of welcome up on the screen. Please join me in saying them. We are glad you have found us on your journey. Let us join in our seeking, in our communion of fellowship, and in our service to each other and the world. We welcome you. We will support you in your joys and your sorrows. Offer our time and talents to you when you are in need, and travel with you on your journey of faith and justice. And I'd like the couple of kiddos we have in the room to welcome the other kiddos we have in the room. Will you play with our new kids? Will you help them when they need help? Will you love them when they need love? Will you be their friend? If so, say yes. All right, folks, let us now repeat the covenant we say together every Sunday, the one that's in the order of service. There's not a slide because I forgot to put one in. That was my fault. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, thus do we covenant with one another. All right, it's photo time, so I don't know how you want to. Short people move forward. It's picture time. Y'all can explore. Picture time. Welcome, everyone. All right. There is no time for all ages. Again, that was my mistake, not Charlene's. I need to make that very clear. Would you like to take our flame? Sure. We pass this flame of religious freedom from generation to generation. Some of you may have seen the email that went out yesterday, and some of you already knew because you knew her. But Barbara Derrick passed away on March 5th. So as I light our red candle of community this morning, hold her and her family in your hearts. We light our candle of community this morning as a people of memory and hope, holding the legacies of those who went before us, but also establishing our own legacies that we will pass down to those who come after us. We also light our candle for peace as a promise for our own work towards a more peaceful, more just, and more free world. We will also light candles of our own, for ourselves, for those we love, for those larger world events that are weighing heavily on our hearts, but also for joys and for celebrations and milestones. Whatever you've brought in the door with you this morning, whether joy or sorrow or concern or hope, bring it forward, share it with us by lighting a candle, and we will bear witness and help you hold it for a time. I invite you to come forward as you are moved. Please join me in the spirit of prayer or meditation, because this piece by Reverend Gretchen Haley is a little bit of both, a prayer and a meditation. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? In these days, we find ourselves too often stuck with these questions on repeat. What's going to happen? Will everything be okay? What can I do? We grasp at signs and markers, articles of news and analysis, Facebook memes and forwarded emails as if a new zodiac, capable of forecasting all that life may yet bring our way, as if we could prepare, as if life had ever made any promises of making sense or turning out the way we thought, as if we are not also actors in this still unfolding story. For this hour, we gather to surrender to the mystery, to release ourselves from the needing to know, the yearning to have it all already figured out, and also the burden of believing we either have all the control or none. Here in our song and our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath, a new healing, a new possibility to take root. That is courage, forged in the fire of our coming together and felt in the spirit that comes alive in this act of faith, that we believe still a new world is possible, that we are creating it already, here and now. Amen, and may it be so. Please remain seated for our prayer in song, our meditation hymn. It is number 16, "'Tis a Gift to be Simple."
Today's reading is a long one, so sit back and relax. A History of Church, including yours, by Sean Neil Barron. One day, your church was born. Maybe it was a gathering of saints called together for the common worship of a wrathful God, ceaselessly praying between bouts of decrying the evil of Christmas or dancing. Or maybe a few brave souls answered a notice in the newspaper, curiosity piqued by the announcement of a religion where free thinking and tolerance were bedrocks. No matter how it happened, your church was born, a gathering of people, humble, caring, anxious, and quirky, all at the same time, who covenanted to be with one another on the journey of life, death, and everything in between. And so it began, a faithful few, beautifully imperfect, called to that central task, that human task of connecting, loving, and serving. They gathered to hear the world broken open for insightful services, rejuvenating music, and a community whose fierce devotion to each other's well-being rivaled a mama bear's for her cubs. But it wasn't always like that, of course. There were the trying times. And I just don't mean Phyllis or Jack, those stubborn but lovely souls who inhabit the netherworld of committee meetings. No, I mean the trying times, when the church almost split in half over the war or integration, or when the mill left the town vacant, or when the minister crossed that line and the people couldn't speak about it for decades. But somehow you were still here, still on the town common, still the church that everyone recognizes, still the ones that show up every time you are called on, still using the communion silver until you voted to sell it. New people came and they changed things, small things, big things, things that nobody noticed as it happened, until suddenly it was hard to even recognize anything anymore. That was a hard moment, a tearful moment. And other things changed too. The history of your church is more a story of the determination of love to break forth than it is about tie-dye or chalices, sermon discussions, or social justice committees. The history of the church is the history of human enterprise, evolving in its spirit, sights and sounds, yet revolving always around its core. The history of your church is the gift of potential and momentum, of baggage and personality. The history of your church is the launch pad from which you spring into action or disarray. Each day your church is born.
I'm assuming the clapping is because even though it was long, it was right. It was just the right one. Shane and I were like, how do we trim this? I don't know if we can trim this. Unitarians and Universalists have a surprisingly long and distinguished history in the United States. The old New England churches that first went down one or the other of those paths, they have 17th century founding dates, and those founding dates are woven into the histories of their cities and towns, and their histories are woven into the history of the entire region. The First Church of Salem, founded 1629. First Church Boston, 1630. Churches in Watertown and Dedham and all those other greater Boston area towns and villages, they all have dates in those ranges. If you're curious, the only original building that's still upright that I'm aware of is the Old Ship Church in Hingham, Massachusetts. They gathered in 1635 and they got that church built in 1681. It's called the Old Ship Church because the timbered interior looks like the interior of a ship. They are still using furnishings from that time period, including items brought from England. That church has been in continuous use this entire time. The reason there aren't more old churches is that, well, old wooden churches do have a tendency to burn down over the years or move to better properties somewhere else in town. There are some older churches in the United States, mostly Spanish missions, but our own history as a movement is rooted in those old Puritan New England churches. And yet their story is not our story. The Universalists were pretty good when it comes to spreading the word and founding new churches, but those old Unitarian churches were not terribly interested in the project. They were very interested in their local context and their local parishes, and other places were someone else's problem. For decades, even for centuries, they didn't really do a lot of work to plant new churches, at least institutionally. People certainly carried their faith with them when they moved, and groups would gather, and so there were waves of settlements moving west. And the American Unitarian Association was generally willing to help, but they didn't take on leadership or planning or intentionality most of the time. Then, between 1948 and 1967, they made a serious push to plant churches across the entire country. The AUA, the American Unitarians, and then later the merged UUA, developed a program early to send materials out to isolated people who didn't have nearby churches, the Church of the Larger Fellowship. It's online today, but it started as mail order. They would mail you sermons, mail you pamphlets, mail you books. And that meant they had a list. They had a list of isolated UU folks, and they noticed when they saw clusters of about 10 people in different parts of the country. They also mapped out growing locations in the suburbs, near colleges, that sort of place. And this isn't a new concept to bring together small groups of people. House churches have been a thing for a long time. A lot of religious groups have always worked in more informal ways. What was unusual was that a denomination that didn't work in informal ways decided to try it and to do so at scale. Generally, people who think you need a lot of structure and you need ministers keep working within highly structured environments with ministers instead of trying this other, less structured style. And this was a good time to plant new communities. Returning soldiers were using their GI benefits to go to college. There was a baby boom. There were plenty of folks looking for church homes for themselves, for their children, and dissatisfied with what was available where they lived. There were people who weren't happy with traditional churches. There were people marrying across church boundaries. There was certainly a time where when a Protestant married a Catholic, they had nowhere to go but the local Unitarians. There was a market. And so the denominational folks helped start small autonomous groups across the whole country. There is a book by Holly Ulbrich, and she summarized it in an article in the UU World if you want to go track that down, and it has dates and it has numbers. In the first 10 years of what we would come to call the fellowship movement, in the first 10 years alone, 275 fellowships were organized. These fellowships attracted in total about 12,500 members. That was 1/3 of the Unitarian growth in that time period. 3/4 of those people were new to Unitarianism. A full 1/5 of those fellowships sprang up in California, Oregon, Washington on the West Coast. 1955 was the peak. It's difficult to get total numbers for the whole time period because a lot of people weren't keeping very good track. But the program kept going until 1967, and somewhere around 500, 600 communities were founded. In 1967, there were some rough financial waters at the UUA, and they put the program on hold. And then some key staff retired at the same time, and it never really came back together as a priority. And I think by that point, the world had changed. In prior times and eras and places, you had to go to church somewhere. Oliver Wendell Holmes was a Boston Unitarian, and his wife Fanny once famously said, well, in Boston you have to be something, and Unitarian is the least you can be. But these days you don't have to be something. You can decide that your something is actually brunch, or doing the New York Times crossword puzzle in bed, or doing really whatever it is you want to do on Sunday morning. Most folks aren't going to notice or mind very much. Down here in the South, there's a little more social pressure about going to church than there is in other parts of the country, but it's not like it was. Certainly not like it was when what church you attended defined who you were and your place in the community. At the same time, the baby boom is tapering off. Fewer and fewer families are seeking religious education for their kids. And so in that social context, I think the UUA didn't really feel a lot of urgency about keeping this program going. There was momentum already, actually, and plenty of churches have been founded since 1967. And sometimes the UUA was involved, but sometimes not. Some sprang up on their own. Some were founded by other congregations. But this fellowship movement, this post-war time period, where lay-led communities are popping up all over the country. That's where we find the story of this church, Bay Area Unitarian Universalist Church, more than in those old New England churches. In some ways, the fellowship movement was an enormous success. That's a lot of new congregations. But not all of those congregations thrived over the long term. The 2008 article says 323 of the fellowships remain, but that was pre-recession and pre-COVID and pre a lot of things. And I know that some have closed since then, even just in the last few years. So I don't know right now what the current numbers are. But I will say that it's fully 1/3 of UU congregations, and plenty of those old New England churches are also growing small and closing. We might be a little bit late to the party, those of us coming out of the fellowship movement, but we are a full third of the party. And a whole nother third is those later post-1967 additions. Before the 1960s, folks who lived in the greater Houston area had to commute all the way into First in the Museum District if they wanted to go to a Unitarian church. In 1965, some folks realized that there was a cluster of people who lived in Clear Lake, Pasadena, and Deer Park, and so they started meeting down here. I assume that much like the other fellowship beginnings, people were reaching out to friends, maybe there were ads in the newspaper. It only takes 10 people to get started, so here folks were able to move quickly and get chartered. The UUA's board of directors officially chartered Bay Area in 1966, and that letter's actually hanging in the office, the original is. The fellowship communities have a totally different vibe from the older Unitarian churches. Fellowships are pretty scrappy, they're pretty DIY naturally. They're not attached to the historical forms, either of organizing or of worship. They didn't recreate those old New England churches. They're informal and intimate. Given that where they are is often pushing against local cultural norms, they also tend to be pretty tightly bound together as a unit. And I imagine that church style sounds pretty familiar to folks in this room. A lot of the communities that came out of that time period remain small and lay-led, and as I said earlier, quite a few have folded. But many of them thrived. Many of them grew to the point of needing a building and paid staff after years of meeting in homes or schools or rental space. And we are one of those congregations. This congregation did shared ministry for a little while, had some part-time ministry for a little while, and called our first full-time minister, Reverend Leonore Montgomery, in 1989. This building, this very sanctuary, was opened in 1992, and that RE wing was added in 2008. So here we are, with a building, a minister, other paid staff. We are a long way away from that small group meeting in 1965. Some of the original fellowships are the same size they were in 1950, a handful of families gathering in a rented space. But Bay Area belongs to that legacy of thriving fellowships who grew and made themselves known in their local communities, who have active social justice programs, who have religious education, and who have claimed or shaped an identity. I spoke last week about how to talk about who we are instead of who we aren't. To some extent, the fellowship movement comes out of that negative definition. It really sold itself on being an alternative, on not being one of those other churches. They were gatherings of people who didn't want to be down the street at some other church. At some of the fellowships I've visited, there's still that sense that they define themselves in that way. I think that probably makes it hard to do outreach. I also think that when people feel so embattled and under so much outside pressure, and you've made something really nice and comfortable where you are, you don't want to change it. And new folks and growth always changes a community. And a community of 200 is always going to be a little bit less intimate than a community of 20. I don't know what the big success stories have in common. I would love to study that one of these days. But if I had to guess with the information that I do have, I would say that instead of turning inward and bracing themselves against the outside, they opened themselves up in welcome. I would guess that they found a positive identity, able to say who they are instead of who they aren't. And they were able to attract newcomers, bring them fully into the community, and grow. That original gathering of ours surely already had a little bit of a sense of identity and purpose, since First Unitarian had been around for a while. There was already a model for how to be both a Unitarian and a Universalist in Houston. I say both because there was a Universalist church that briefly existed, and when that didn't work out, a good chunk of those people founded a Unitarian church instead, and there it is in Midtown. Both are in the DNA of Houston UUism. Emerson launched right before us in 1960, and so we were able to be a part of a growing, thriving network of churches, fellowships, and communities in the Houston area. And we are not who we were then. How could we be? It's not the 1960s, and the world is not what it was then. But the impulses and dreams, the things that drew our founders together and that brought in our earliest members, are probably a little more familiar than what founded Salem and Boston. It is, after all, a little bit closer to us in time period, in outlook, and perspective. The longing to be in a community where we feel we belong, and a surrounding culture that doesn't always make us feel that way. A desire to not commute all the way into downtown Houston on a Sunday morning. Wanting a strong moral and ethical foundation for our children. And so they came, those seekers and dreamers, with visions of what the church might become. And they laid the foundations for what and who we are today. We are a storytelling creature, human beings. We understand ourselves when we find ourselves in the world's stories. And it is good to know the history of this place, of our community, and it is good to imagine ourselves entering into that story. Because we have a story that's one of scrappy independence and a desire for freedom, and also a deep longing for connection and relationship. And that is a very Unitarian Universalist story. As we continue to write chapters in the days ahead and to shape our own parts of this history, it is good to remember also where we came from, those seekers and dreamers and lovers of truth and freedom who we carry with us. As we move into our offering, let's take a moment to honor the ancestors of this church, the people who first came together to create a home for liberal religion here in Texas. The people who worked to raise money for a building, this building, who sat in committee meetings and created bylaws, who chopped and marinated and baked for potlucks, who painted and weeded and pounded nails and washed countless dishes, who gathered to worship, to learn, to grieve, to heal, to serve, to build justice, to transform their lives and this world. We are the recipients of an incredible gift and a beautiful vision. Let us do our part to keep this congregation strong, vital, and thriving for the generations to come. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received.
Peace in
Please join me in saying, "This gift from the abundance of my life blesses me, our ministries, and the world." And now it's time for announcements. As treasurer, I'm going to say it's stewardship time. And if you haven't picked up your pledge packet, please be sure to stop by the table in the parlor and get your packet. Next week, we'll begin mailing them out to whoever hasn't picked up theirs. So far, we have only received 37% of the total expected pledges. Right now, we have pledges totaling about $186,000. We're getting closer to our goal of $410,000, but we're still less than halfway there. Turning in your pledge is very important. Your pledge allows us to estimate what our income will be in the upcoming fiscal year and lets us budget what programs and activities we'll be able to fund. And please be sure to turn in your pledge by March 17th. And the success of our garage and plant sale depends on you. Sign up to help and bring your donations. Donations can be dropped off at Cockrell Hall after the congregational meeting on Sunday, March 30th, and will be accepted through Wednesday noon on April 2nd. If you need to drop off items before then, please email garagesale@bauuc.org to access the off-site storage. And next week, okay. You got a sheet inside your order of service. Please fill it out and place it in the ivory-colored box in the parlor. And the garage sale gives our neighbors a chance to buy good quality items at very reasonable prices while giving us a boost to our operating budget. This is an opportunity to give your time and talent. This Monday, March 10th, tomorrow, at 7 o'clock, our speaker and events team will be welcoming guest speaker Dr. Andy Hines. Dr. Hines is Associate Professor and Program Coordinator for the University of Houston's graduate program in Foresight. He will be speaking to us about imagining what happens after capitalism. Be sure to join us in the church sanctuary for this informative event. And the day trippers, the two venues that were planned are up in the air right now. So you'll be getting information about what the new venues will be as it becomes available. After today's service, everybody is invited to join us in Cockrell Hall to mingle over coffee and enjoy light snacks and to celebrate all our new members. Join us and let's come together and share some quality time as a community. And after today's service, family, parents, and children are invited to bring their appetite and a dish to share for a delightful family potluck lunch in Cockrell Hall. While the children play and are cared for, parents can engage in meaningful discussions about parenting topics. Don't miss out on this perfect blend of food, fun, and parenting insights. If you didn't bring a dish, join us anyway. We have plenty to share. And finally, stay connected with everything happening at BAUUC by subscribing to our weekly newsletter. Delivered every Tuesday, it's packed with news, events, and updates about our community. Use the QR code on the screen or visit bauuc.org to sign up today. And now, please stand as you're willing and able to sing our closing song, number 298, Wake Now My Senses. That's enough.
That's okay, we'll get them next time. This really has been a service of utter chaos, but you know what? It's been delightful, and we're all here, and we are all together, and it is good. In this religious community, we reach back to the past to honor those who came before us and those who have given so much that we might be here today. And we reach forward with hands of fellowship and welcome to embrace those who have newly arrived. Wherever your path may take you, may you carry the good news you have heard here today in your heart and on your lips as a blessing to everyone you meet. Go in peace and blessed be. Amen.
Waiting for that for 30 years.
like that history of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
You are welcome.
It gives people a sense of identity of who we are.
This is marginally out.